My name is Dr. Solomon DeFrancis, and I want to take a moment to speak to you about connections and relationships in leadership. Now, I'll start by posing a question. What is more important than a relationship? Can you think of something more important than the relationship that you have with your mother, with your father, with a family member, with your spouse, or possibly your children? Now, although we don't create these types of interconnections in the workforce, there still has to be a time that mutual respect is taken between the employer and the employee. Now, there's no specific point in time that you know you've created a friend, or you've established an individual to be your leader. It's a series of conversations, a series of actions, a series of small nuances in human behavior, and at the end of it, you have a leader. On the other hand, when these things are lacking or shortchanged or are not fully developed, we often look at the person in charge as a boss, a manager, or a supervisor. Now, how does this end up happening? Is it since the individual didn't take the time to build the relationship, or is that individual truly lacking the emotional intelligence and self-awareness into developing into a true leader? A true leader needs to have a firm grasp of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the empathy piece that leaders have and bosses lack. EI understands to acknowledge empathy for colleagues and our current situation of the pandemic and how it took its toll on individuals, the rise in mental health, and the disconnect in human in-person interaction. It allows a leader to put themselves in the eyes, the shoes, or the situation the employees are in. Now, having high emotional intelligence will enable leaders to take on the philosophy of individuals coming to work every day trying to do the best they can, and not the ideology that individuals show up with the full intention of how they can best screw it up that day. Emotional intelligence also plays a vital role with leaders staying in tune with their workforce. When we lack emotional intelligence, we start having disparaging margins of interconnections amongst organizations, then seeing byproducts such as the income inequality gaps in modern society. With numbers as frightening as 3 individuals having more than 50% of the United States' wealth, proves that these leaders have lost touch, have fallen out of touch with the typical workforce. These conglomerate organizations create meaningful relationships with their stakeholders, discarding the importance of the reality of the everyday workforce individual. When these leaders lack emotional intelligence, they slowly become the boss, losing all respect and autonomy. Now, another aspect of leadership that is often overlooked is organizational size. Robin Dunbar from Cambridge University did an interesting study. Dr. Dunbar created Dunbar's number, which states that one cannot have more than 150 meaningful relationships. Dunbar is a British anthropologist who found early hunter-gatherer societies and modern groupings, offices, communities, factories, residential campsites, military organizations, and even Christmas card lists to stick to about 150 individuals. So leaders need to be cognitive of Dunbar's number of 150 meaningful relationships and who they are with, because ultimately, it affects the leader's values. So this raises 2 points. One being, a leader must be cautious of who is leading their influence, and does this pose the issue of organizations needing to only have 150 employees? As we dig deeper into Dunbar's number and how it states that an individual has a threshold of around 150 meaningful relationships, we find this number so critical because of the number of individuals a leader is coming in contact with daily and the individuals that they value. As we examine the corporate world, it has become commonplace in our society that CEOs are extremely disconnected, which creates substantial social inequalities in society. Now, suppose we look at the framework of a major conglomerate in business in the United States. The CEO of a corporation is creating meaningful relationships with board members and other influential stakeholders. An example, the CEO of Amazon, and how he focuses on stakeholders' interests and he is not in tune with the people carrying out the day-to-day work, thus creating a level of disconnect. They're not taking into account any meaningful relationships with the ordinary worker. That level of disconnect begins disparities of inequality, and boss becomes a more suitable title. Now this is how wealth becomes hyper-concentrated in the hands of few. Now let me shift your focus from the one of the consumer world to the one of education. By trade, I'm an educator. And more specifically, I'm a principal at a challenging middle school. Now some say that I'm crazy, and others say, oh, may God have mercy on your soul. In organizations such as education, the framework is similar in that individuals at the top must be cautious not to fall into the same loops. Just like the CEO focuses on stakeholder interests, upper management in education must not fall into the same traps and focusing solely on data improvement. At a school site, principals' first meaningful relationships are with teachers and staff. The principal must make a cognitive decision to create meaningful relationships with students. Failure to do this will create a level of disconnection. Typically, staff members will make up a good 150 of the meaningful relationships on a school site. And if you have a student body that serves nearly 1,000 students, when are these relationships being exercised? So it takes a conscious, savvy leader to understand that although the 150 meaningful relationships might be with site staff and district office individuals, the focus still needs to be around student learning. A true leader makes a conscious effort to build the relationships with the students and the staff continually, sometimes stretching themselves thin, but allowing the leader not to become out of touch with the actual essential work. Now, the same ideology can be said to a superintendent of a school district. The meaningful relationships superintendents work through in organizations start with the executive cabinet, principals, and staff. It takes a true leader to take on the cognitive approach to be in it for the students in the community, therefore staying in tune with the district pulse. When this is not done, the superintendent is out of grasp with the common themes or struggles of the community. They cannot adequately move the organization forward. Now, all too often, we see individuals in high positions holding exacerbated titles, clinging to outdated ideologies, in some desperate attempt of legacy, rather than being conscious for the greater good. The best leaders know their limitations, and they work on them. They know their people, and they play to their strengths. They get the most out of individuals, understanding that that is how you build top talent and how you build organizations. So when we see bosses that hold long titles but have entirely lost connections to the people, public, community, or everyday individual, this begs the question, are they true leaders? In Western philosophy, there's an adage, philosophers are kings and kings are philosophers. This demands leaders to grapple over decisions and reflect on every perspective possible when leading, which requires emotional intelligence, understanding cognitive limits, and meaningful relationships from organizational leaders. I'll leave you with this. Leaders, or should I say bosses, that fail to evolve in their position have over the years lost the connections to the people. So let's think about this. People are constantly changing. If leaders do not grow with them, they have lost the true meaning of leadership. True leaders must always maintain the mindset, you're either getting better or you're getting worse, but you're never the same. Thank you.